Okay, fine, fair. I'm just saying a modern iteration of his character would probably not go over quite as coolly, if you catch my drift.
Hey, don't use "they live" to push your political leanings, Adam. Even
right,
though the movie is
me.
political.
That's right. Carpenter is always a very staunch defender of the movie being a very political statement.
And he doesn't like when certain people use it, for instance, neo-Nazis, to push their agendas. And he'll tweet about it.
I'm not saying that's what I was alluding to, but
hey, you and your
you
bubblegum.
just kind of did.
I don't think you've watched They Live, because you're saying he was a conspiracy theorist when he just stumbled upon one. He was an unwitting observer.
Are you telling me that I've watched They Live with the wrong glasses on or without the right glasses?
I think I think so. I think you watched them with, let's see, what are some good glasses? You know those glasses that you get when your eyes get dilated and you have to put them over them? And then you put those over some sunglasses. That's what you're watching They Live on.
Truly wild. My eyes are open now.
Oh, just take them off so you can see.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes things easier.
Did we just have a fight?
No, I think you just awakened my mind.
Good. Are you coming back to this podcast?
As long as I'm invited, Mark.
All right, so let's talk about Jason Goes to Hell. And I just want to ask you, how old is Steve?
I love that question because I was going to ask you the same thing. And these movies have a patterned history, right, of casting people who are in their, mid to late 20s, early 30s, posing as teenagers. And Steve is a wonderful example because here you got a guy who looks
45,
dorky as all hell, and has, your dad's glasses on and this ridiculous Letterman jersey that just screams, "Hello there, fair children. What's going on?" He might as well be skating in every scene and doing an ollie off a rail because it's just like so desperately juvenile. But you're right. I don't know. I think he's supposed to be in his early 20s because, right, he's a young father who obviously is no longer married, but he's still fraternizing with younger kids. Well, maybe not younger kids, older teenagers, I'll put it that way. Because I think that one girl does come on to him early on in the movie. But yeah, I would have to assume that he's at least playing a character who's in his mid to early 20s. That's my guess.
See, I felt like he was a 30-something-year-old dude, and I don't know why he was wearing that. But I'm telling you, man, he's an action hero, and he's an action hero. He does more work than infamous and famous bounty hunter Creighton Duke.
Yeah, Creighton is kind of a weird, wasted character in a lot of ways. He has his moments, but when you talk about him versus Steve definitely gets a lot more done. I think I told you before, but I think I'm more impressed with the fact that he can hop over his wrists and cuffs than anything else.
That was really slick. When I saw that scene, I went, whoa.
Right, because he doesn't only do that, right? He's got a gun on him from his buddy cop friend, and he slips out of the cuffs, chucks his elbow in front of that guy's head and totally gets away scot-free, and then takes a gun to Jason. It's a very action sequence, to your point. It is almost uncharacteristically action-y because you got this series of movies
Terminator-esque.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah, really. That corridor sequence definitely echoes back to T2, but my point is it's very uncharacteristic and unbecoming because this franchise is really built on victims being picked apart easily by Jason with really nobody standing up to him until you're talking about the final girl, in which case she's got a fire poker or something.
Yeah, and then she stabs him with a magical dagger.
Yes, the magical dagger, the one that would do it where nothing else would.
But I gotta tell you, I just want to talk about Steve a little bit more. Yeah. I love that he's always afraid in the situations, but he doesn't back down. So that character rings true to me. He's not an action hero, but he wants to protect his family. Even when that girl hits on him, he's like, no, I got other things to do.
He's trying to get his baby.
Yeah, and he's just you don't know why they broke up, but he just seems to. He's out of his league, but these are my favorite characters, like Jack Burton. They're out of their league, but they hang in there.
Yeah, they're in over their head. And I think that's a good point because it makes me wonder, how good is his ex-wife's judgment of character if she's hanging out with the sleazy American case file reporter dude who's talking about effing her and using her mom's house as, some exploitive news report when she could have a guy like Steve who can clearly get out of sticky situations and thwart Jason.
By all accounts, he's a good man.
Do you think they got together again after putting Jason in his place? Because I feel like that gets you some major points with the ladies.
Absolutely. And I think he maybe gained some confidence. Maybe he didn't have a lot of confidence with her. And then so she was kind of led away by the very confident jerk. So he seemed like the nice guy, but through his altercations of spearing Kane Hodder through a glass window, because Kane Hodder notoriously played this role. He wouldn't look down. He would never look silly. This is a guy who wanted Jason to have the upper hand at all moments, and he let Steve tackle him through a window.
He let it happen. It's also bizarre that we aren't really addressing the elephant in the room here. And by elephant in the room, I mean the literal gremlin monster creature that scurries about after, exiting the bodies of its host. Jason very much is seen as this wild, spermy cretin that shrieks and just sort of scampers around until it finds a host. And it's like, do I really want to associate this iconic slasher with this morbid, tiny, like you could step on it and kill it type threat? I don't know. It's a very bizarre logic that they even pitched this premise, but I give them credit for trying. It's bold, at least.
I mean, I like this. I don't rate this movie. Well, yeah, I do. It's not good.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, though. What makes this movie watchable for me, I think this is one of the more... I would watch this ahead of the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one.
Really?
Because it's just that you have Creighton Duke, right? And I know you want to talk about him. They're like, so when we ask you about Jason, what do you think? I think about a little girl in a yellow dress and a hot dog going through a hot dog going through a donut.
Yeah.
He's breaking fingers for no reason. He breaks Steve. Steve doesn't even worry about he spears Kane Hodder through a window with broken fingers. He's snapping fingers.
He's a textbook sadist, yeah.
He gets killed by a bear hug. And for some reason, he has captured 6 of the most notorious serial killers ever. And when he comes to town to capture a serial killer, everybody tells him to get away.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, he's a really interesting character. And I also don't appreciate the Deus Ex Machina that takes his character out, because he falls through a random like floorboard in the home, and he's like slightly incapacitated before he gets bear hugged to death. So I was like, wow, that's super uninteresting, and thanks for your help, I guess. But even going back to his intro, like he's this prize bounty hunter, right? And I would have loved to have seen Tommy Jarvis in this role instead, right? He's a psychotic survivor. He's been training for that day, right? Almost like Laurie in the new Halloween. Like he's been waiting to get his rematch with Jason.
Listen to our podcast Halloween too. Adam's on it.
Yeah, I'm on it.
He screams at me during it because we had an argument.
I got mad. But like, I don't know. I feel like Creighton Duke is an interesting character. I would have preferred a Tommy Jarvis in the role. It would have felt more like a homecoming. But at any rate, this sounds unorthodox. I'm really glad that Creighton Duke is black, because you're talking about a bounty hunter type who dresses like that. He wears a trench coat and a hat like that. He talks a lot of shit to women, especially like that. He's espousing about, taking people's women like that.
Oh, yeah, he does do that.
At the diner. And, if this guy was white, I'd sort of think he would, I don't know, maybe he's a little neckbeardy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's one of those nice guys. So, yeah, I think in retrospect, for a culture that sort of it comes after this movie, it is fortunate that he's not some cringy white dude who thinks he can take down Jason, because that's just preposterous. But he has a gravity to him, right? He talks and he's real smooth. So I do like his character overall. I do take issue, however, that he somehow understands right off the bat in that news report you mentioned that he knows about this supernatural body hopping so early on in the movie, and there is no evidence, zero evidence whatsoever in prior films or any context that's new to the audience to explain this, besides like the coroner that went mad and ate a heart, like the day or night before. Like that's the only evidence we have. What could possibly have informed him that this body hopping thing was Jason's MO? Because he's kind of right on the money, but we have no idea why.
He's Creighton Duke.
All right. Well, I'm convinced now. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Yep, Creighton
for this
knows.
For this academic discussion, drilling down as to how Creighton Duke is all-knowing and just completely understands Jason's.
It's Creighton Duke.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if there's two writers on this movie. I wonder if one of them went to Creighton and the other one went to Duke.
Interesting. I mean, there's always the opportunity. There's always there's always.
Wait, I wanted to tackle that one. You said it was interesting.
What? That one person named him Creighton and the other person named him Duke.
Yep. What if one was a Michael Crichton fan and the other one was a fan of John Wayne?
That they named him the Duke for that reason.
Yep.
I don't know. I just kind of thought it was a really masculine.
I know. I'm just
badass name.
All right, now we love Creighton Duke. He's a little mishandled, but a lot of things are mishandled in this movie. And there's one thing that you really wanted to touch upon was that Jason has the wrong eye covered in this film.
So I wasn't positive, but it happens to be that we're talking about the end of part 4, right? When Tommy Jarvis takes the machete to Jason, right? And there's that very famous Tom Savini effect shot where it slides down his head because it's stuck basically to the side of his eye.
Yeah, that's
now,
cool.
Henceforth, Jason is more or less working with one eye. He doesn't have his left eye is out. We know this from part 4. Now, when you're watching Jason Goes to Hell, I believe, and I might be wrong, but memory serves, they got the wrong eye placement. So he's missing, I believe, his right eye in this movie, and he has his left eye, which is incorrect. So it's a little weird for, I guess, this. I mean, how many details about Jason do you really have to get right? Like, all right, you're looking at reference photos from earlier movies, and you're maybe taking liberties with the creative direction, which I'll say now, it is my favorite version of Jason. I think he looks fantastic in this movie. I think Kane Hodder has that signature hunch and stature and that walk. It's very domineering and frightening. So he's got the posture and the body language down. But I also just happen to like, his tattered clothes and his mask. I love how it's just sort of melted literally into his face, and his face is sort of overgrown over it. It's literally become a part of him at this point. So that aside, yeah, it makes you wonder, like, how did they screw that up? It seems like a pretty simple thing to get right.
Well, he's also a vampire in this movie, and a lot of times that you look at him, it's in a mirror when it's somebody else. So are you mistaking the mirror, looking at him in the mirror for the wrong eye?
So not only is Jason a zombie, right, after part 4, because, he gets from the dead in part 6, but you're a vampire saying now because of the mirror tricks.
Yeah, and also, when he comes back from the dead, he's into the mom's body. So maybe he reincarnated and the mom had messed up that eye when she had dropped down into the cellar.
You know what? That's a really interesting point, though, because I read that scene differently. And to our listeners, to some context, this is toward the end of the movie. Jason's little critter thing is on the loose. And he comes upon the, what's the character's name again?
Tommy?
No, the woman.
Oh, I have her name up here. Just a second.
I can't keep track of any of these people's roles in the movie anymore. But
let me go down here.
What's her relation to Jason? I can't remember.
Oh, niece.
Yeah, niece. Whatever. Jason's demonic monster finds his niece, and there's an off-screen bit of action, and they're sort of alluding to it. And it's like this idea that only through a Voorhees can he be reborn. Now, you're taking it to be that he used her body as a vessel. And I think there's some liberties you can take with that, because it's vague enough to imply that he might have just crawled up her wahoo. And
no, he did.
Yeah.
And Erin Gray hated that. In the documentary, she said that she felt disgusted by seeing that, and she wouldn't have done it.
Oh, it's completely wild. Like in a movie as wild as this, it is out there. It is very out there. So I guess at any rate, he crawls up the wagyu and becomes his normal, regular, ugly, frightening Jason, which I don't know the logic there. Apparently, that can fit through. I'm not even going to say it. Anyways, you get the idea. It's just very strange.
Oh, yeah, it's very strange. This is a weird movie.
Yeah, and, it's all full of despicable, sleazy characters, I guess, except for Steve, who's kind of a good guy, and
kind of a good guy. He's a dang hero.
He's an action hero, and he's a good guy.
And the jerky lady gets her face elbowed in?
Yeah.
The diner lady?
I want to say that she is the same actress as the diner lady in the first Friday the 13th. If you go back and watch the Friday the 13th first movie, there is a sort of